I'm so glad to be joining you again for Harry Potter. We are getting so close to the end. We're on chapter 16. I'm so excited to be reading with you. I got my glasses out of the classroom, my Harry Potter glasses, so I'm feeling very festive, I guess you could say. I'm so excited to be reading with you. If you remember, we just learned from Argog, the giant spider, that the girl that was killed the first time the Chamber of Secrets was open was Moaning Myrtle, and she's the girl that is in the bathroom, okay? So chapter 16 is called The Chamber of Secrets. It's going to be a good one. I hope you guys enjoy. All those times we were in that bathroom, and she was just 3 toilets away, said Ron bitterly at breakfast the next day, and we could have asked her, and now... It had been hard enough trying to look for spiders. Escaping their teachers long enough to sneak into a girl's bathroom. The girl's bathroom, moreover, right next to the scene of the first attack, was going to be almost impossible. But something happened in their first lesson, Transfiguration, that drove the Chamber of Secrets out of their minds. For the first time in weeks, 10 minutes into the class, Professor McGonagall told them that their exams would start on the 1st of June, 1 week from today. Exams? Howled Senior Finnegan. We're still getting exams? There was a loud bang behind Harry as Neville Longbottom's wand slipped, vanishing one of his legs under the desk. Professor McGonagall restored it with a wave of her own wand and turned frowning to Seamus. The whole point of keeping the school open at this time is for you to receive your education, she said sternly. The exams will therefore take place as usual. I trust you are all studying hard. Studying hard? It had never occurred to Harry that there would be exams at the castle in this state. There was a great deal of mutinous muttering around the room, which made Professor McGonagall scowl even more darkly. Professor Dumbledore's instructions were to keep the school running as normally as possible, she said, and that, I need hardly point out, means finding how much you all have learned this year. Harry looked down at the pair of rabbits he was supposed to be turning into slippers. What had he learned so far this year? He couldn't seem to think of anything that would be useful in an exam. Ron looked as though he'd just been told he had to go and live in the Forbidden Forest. Can you imagine me taking exams with this? He asked Harry, holding up his wand, which had just started whistling loudly. 3 days before their exams, Professor McGonagall made another announcement at breakfast. I have good news, she said, and the great hall, instead of falling silent, erupted. Dumbledore's coming back? Several people yelled joyfully. You've caught the heir of Slytherin, squealed the girl at the Ravenclaw table. Quidditch matches are back on, roared Wood excitedly. When the hubbub had satisfied, Professor McGonagall said, Professor Sprout has informed me that the mandrakes are ready for cutting at last. Tonight we'll be able to revive those people who have been petrified. I need hardly remind you of all of one of them may be able to tell us who or what attacked them. I am hopeful that this dreadful year will end with our catching the culprit. There was an explosion of cheering. Harry looked over at the Slytherin table and wasn't at all surprised to see that Draco Malfoy hadn't joined in. Ron, however, was looking happier than he'd looked in days. It won't matter that we never asked Myrtle then, he said to Harry. Hermione will probably have all the answers when we wake her up. Mind you, she'll go crazy when she finds out we've got exams in 3 days' time. She hasn't studied. It might be kinder to leave her there while this is all over. Just then, Ginny Weasley came over and sat down next to Ron. She looked tense and nervous, and Harry noticed that her hands were twisting in her lap. What's up? Said Ron, helping himself to more porridge. Ginny didn't say anything, but glanced up and down the Gryffindor table with a scared look on her face that reminded Harry of someone, though he couldn't think of who. Spit it out, said Ron, watching her. Harry suddenly realized who Ginny looked like. She was rocking back and forth slightly in her chair, exactly like Dobby did when he was teetering on the edge of a revealing forbidden information. I've got to tell you something, Ginny mumbled carefully, not looking at Harry. What is it? Said Harry. Ginny looked as though she couldn't find the right words. What? Asked Ron. Ginny opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Harry leaned forward and spoke quietly so that only Ginny and Ron could hear him. Is it something about the Chamber of Secrets? Have you seen something? Someone acting oddly? Ginny drew a deep breath, and at that precise moment, Percy Weasley appeared looking tired and wan. If you've finished eating, I'll take that seat, Ginny. I'm starving. I've only just come off patrol duty. Ginny jumped up as though her chair had just been electrified, gave Percy a fleeting, frightened look, and scampered away. Percy sat down and grabbed a mug from the center of the table. Percy, said Ron angrily. She was just about to tell us something important. Halfway through a gulp of tea, Percy choked. What sort of thing? He said, coughing. I just asked her if she'd seen anything odd, and she started to say, Oh, that there's nothing to do with the Chamber of Secrets, said Percy at once. How do you know? Said Ron, his eyebrows raised. Well, if you must know, Ginny walked in on me on the other day when I was, well, never mind. The point is, she spotted me doing something, and I asked her not to mention it to anybody. I must say, I did think she kept her word. It's nothing, really. I'd just rather... Harry had never seen Percy look so uncomfortable. "What were you doing, Percy?" said Ron, grinning. "Go on, tell us. We won't laugh." Percy didn't smile. "Pass me those rolls, Harry. I'm starving." Harry knew the whole mystery might be solved tomorrow without their help, but he wasn't about to pass up a chance to speak to Myrtle if she turned up. And to his delight, it did. Mid-morning, when they were being led to the history of magic, Professor Gilderoy Lockhart, who had so often assured them that all the danger had passed, only to be proved wrong right away, was now wholeheartedly convinced that it was hardly worth the trouble to see them safely down the corridors. His hair wasn't as sleek as usual. It seemed to have been up most of the night patrolling the fourth floor. "Mark my words," he said, ushering them around the corner. "The first words out of those poor petrified people's mouths will be, 'It was Hagrid.' Frankly, I'm astounded Professor McGonagall thinks all those security measures are necessary." "I agree, sir," said Harry, making Ron drop his book in surprise. "Thank you, Harry," said Lockhart, graciously, while they waited for the long line of Hufflepuffs to pass. "I mean, we teachers have quite enough to be getting on with, without walking students to classes and standing guard all night." "That's right," said Ron, catching on. "Why don't you leave us here, sir? We've only got one more corridor to go." "You know, Weasley, I think I will," said Lockhart. "I really should go and prepare my next class." And he hurried off. "Prepare his class," Ron sneered. "Gone to curl his hair, more like it." They let the rest of the Gryffindors draw ahead of them, then darted down a side passage and hurried off toward Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. But just as they were congratulating each other on their brilliant scene, "Potter! Weasley! What are you doing?" It was Professor McGonagall, and her mouth was the thinnest of thin lines. We were, Ron stammered. "We were going to go and see Hermione," said Harry. Ron and Professor McGonagall both looked at him. "We haven't seen her for ages, Professor," Harry went on hurriedly, treading on Ron's foot, "and we thought we'd sneak into the hospital wing, and tell her that the mandrakes are nearly ready and are not to worry." Professor McGonagall was still staring at him, and for a moment Harry thought she was going to explode. But when she spoke, it was a strangely quirky voice. "Of course," she said, and Harry, amazed, saw a tear glistening in her beady eye. "Of course I realize this has all been hardest on the friends of those who have been. I quite understand. Yes, Potter, of course you may visit Miss Granger. I will inform Professor Binns where you've gone. Tell Madame Pomfrey I have given my permission." Harry and Ron hurried away, hardly daring to believe that they'd avoid detention. And they turned the corner, and they distinctly heard Professor McGonagall blow her nose. "That," said Ron fervently, "was one of the best stories you've ever come up with." They had no choice now but to go to the hospital wing and tell Madame Pomfrey that they had Professor McGonagall's permission to visit Hermione. Madame Pomfrey let them in, but reluctantly. "There's just no point talking to a petrified person," she said, and they had to admit she had a point when they'd taken their seats next to Hermione. It was plain that Hermione didn't have the faintest inkling that she had visitors, and that they might as well just tell her beside her cabinet not to worry for all the good it would do. "Wonder if she did see the attacker, though," said Ron, looking sadly at Hermione's face. "Because if he sneaked up on them all, no one will ever know." But Harry wasn't looking at Hermione's face. He was more interested in her right hand. It lay clenched on top of blankets, and bending closer, he saw that a piece of paper was scrunched inside her fist. Making sure that Madame Pomfrey was nowhere near, he pointed this out to Ron. "Try to get it out," Ron whispered, shifting his chair so that he blocked Harry from Madame Pomfrey's view. It was no easy task. Hermione's hand was clamped so tightly around the paper that Harry was sure he was going to tear it. While Ron kept watch, he tugged and twisted, and at last, after several tense minutes, the paper came free. It was a page torn from a very old library book. Harry smoothed it out eagerly, and Ron leaned close to read it, too. "Of the many fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land, there is none more curious or more deadly than the basilisk, known also as the king of serpents. This snake, which may reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, is born from a chicken's egg, hatched beneath a toad. Its methods of killing are most wondrous. For aside from its deadly venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with the beam of its eyes shall suffer instant death. Spiders flee before the basilisk, for it is their mortal enemy, and the basilisk flees only from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it." And beneath this, a single word had been written in a hand Harry recognized as Hermione. "Pipes." It was just as though somebody had flicked a light on in his brain. "Ron," he breathed, "this is it. This is the answer. The monster in the chamber is a basilisk, a giant serpent. That's why I've been hearing that voice all over the place, and nobody else has heard it. It's because I understand parcel tongue." Harry looked up at the beds around him. "The basilisk kills people by looking at them, but no one's died because no one's looked it straight in the eye. Colin saw it through his camera. The basilisk burned up all the film inside it, but Colin just got petrified. Justin must have seen the basilisk through nearly headless Nick. Nick got the full blast of it, but he couldn't die again, and Hermione and that Ravenclaw prefect were found with a mirror next to them. Hermione had just realized the monster was a basilisk. I bet you anything she warned the first person she met to look around corners with the mirror first. And that girl pulled out her mirror and Ron dropped his jaw. And Mrs. Norris? He whispered eagerly. Harry thought hard, picturing the scene of the night of Halloween. The water, he said slowly. The flood from Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. I bet you Mrs. Norris only saw the reflection. He scanned the page in his hand eagerly. The more he looked at it, the more it made sense. Ooh, guys, we've just figured out possibly what the monster is in the Chamber of Secrets. It might be a basilisk, which is a giant snake. So a lot of good stuff coming. I'll be reading again tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed. I miss you all, and I hope you have a magical rest of your Monday. Bye, guys.